Toto Wolff has engaged in a war of words with Christian Horner after the latest development of events in which the Red Bull team principal hasn't ruled out a move for Russell in Red Bull in the foreseeable future. It's safe to say that the biggest bombshell in the Formula One world has been caused by Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes, and from that on there seems to be a lot of other movable pieces that have been directly or indirectly connected to Hamilton. For example, the links that Verstappen has received in the past couple of months with Mercedes and Aston Martin are not directly related to Hamilton, but because of his departure and the fact that Mercedes only want the best of the best, it made the three-time world champion the most wanted asset in the previous couple of months. However, with Verstappen committing to Red Bull for at least 2025, even though he has a valid contract until 2028, there are questions about whether 2026 would see him drive with the Milton Keynes base squad. Obviously, Marco has put a big question here with his latest statement, and what Horner said after him has stirred up the situation even further. When talking about the ongoing drama with the drivers that saw Ricciardo leave the team, Horner said, "We've got a gap now, but we just want to take time to consider what those options look like for the future. And we're not afraid to go out of the pool. You know, George Russell is out of contract at the end of next year. It would be foolish not to take that into consideration. There are other talented drivers that could well be out of contract as well." Of course, this statement was made as a very flattering gesture towards Russell, who, although outqualified his teammate in a great manner this year and won a race in Austria, is still behind in points, which can be mostly written towards the fact that Hamilton's 2 wins in Silverstone and Belgium came with Russell not finishing the race. Be that as it may, Russell has shown great qualities as a driver, and while he's yet to prove himself as a proper leader of a team, a role that's been subsequently gifted to him after Hamilton left for Ferrari, there is no question that if the car is there, he can deliver the results that are needed. But Wolff's constant interest in Verstappen, as well as the signing of Antonelli, could have provoked Horner to try and cause a dent in Mercedes' drivers' poll, which is why he went on to say what he said. Obviously, the Austrian feels like this is just plain bluff from his colleague from Red Bull, as there are always situations in which he likes to put the trust away from the drivers to their respective teams. And when talking about this to a greater extent, Wolff said, "Horner is always stirring some stuff up on his part. That's part of the game. George is a Mercedes driver. He has been forever and hopefully will be forever. He has a long contract with the team." But be that as it may, you cannot help but note that the situation in Mercedes has been quite turbulent in the past couple of races, because Russell has failed to put himself up there as the leader of the team and prove to Mercedes that he has what it takes to win championships when they will have proper machinery in their hands. On the other hand, he will have to deal with the uprising talent of Kimi Antonelli, who is eager to prove that he's the next revival of Verstappen, as he's received a lot of praise not just from Wolff but also from his next race engineer, Peter Bonington, as well as the technical director of Mercedes, James Vowles. While Russell will serve his role as a mentor to Antonelli, who will be 18 once he debuts in the sport, it's a safe bet that the Italian will be anything but a good Samaritan for Mercedes and Russell. Nico Rosberg has also hinted towards the fact that Russell needs to be worried about his future in the team, because if there is one thing that he understands about this and any other team on the grid, it's that young and up-and-coming drivers are never a good thing to deal with if you're the leader of the team as a driver. When talking about the current situation, Rosberg said, "George is not safe at all because Toto still wants Max. He will try again for 2026 because give up does not appear in Toto's vocabulary. If Max does become available, and I do think it's a possibility, then it's a shootout between George and Kimi next year. It's a lot of pressure on George as he has everything to lose. He should be the one ahead at the team internally because Kimi is 18 and he's completely new and in a full pressure situation, so it's not an easy one for him." Rosberg has driven under the rule of Wolff and Mercedes because he's been part of the team ever since they rejoined the grid after a long pause in 2010 and decided to retire in 2016 after infamously winning the championship against his teammate Hamilton. But nevertheless, Wolff might have caused a lot of this situation thanks to the talks that he had around Max Verstappen, saying that every team on the grid would want to have him as a driver on their squad. It's not technically a lie, it's just the fact that he has 2 very good drivers, and by not wanting to commit the same mistake that he made a couple of years ago when not signing Verstappen, Wolff might have subsequently revealed that there is a situation in which Russell might not be part of the team's long-term picture. It also didn't help that the media made up an interview with Bradley Lord, the chief of communication for Mercedes, in which he says that Verstappen is definitely on their list for 2026 and Russell and Antonelli would have one hell of a job to prove who is more worthy to keep under the newly regulated era. Now, apart from Mercedes, a huge competition for Verstappen's signature is definitely Aston Martin, because we've seen that with the arrival of Newey and Honda from 2026 onwards, the ingredients for a perfect team are there. And Helmut Marko has also opened up about potential departure from the three-time world champion if he senses that something is utterly wrong with Red Bull. Verstappen himself was adamant that there are much bigger problems that he needs to fix right now, and the races in Baku and Singapore have proven that the car is far from where they want it to be, but whether or not this will be enough to lose the championship to Norris by a small margin and start a cascade of events in which Verstappen will leave the Austrian nest, time will tell. As of now, Marko believes that there is a big possibility that the Dutchman will consider Aston Martin as his next home. But the sole fact that Verstappen can think about a move outside of Red Bull is why Horner is starting talks about Russell joining the Austrian squad in a potential blockbuster deal, hence the aggravated response from Wolff. When talking about Verstappen's future, Marko said, "Max drives where he can win. Aston Martin has the most modern factory. The wind tunnel will be operational next year, and Honda engines will be added to that. Everything fits, and if you look at history, it is clear. Wherever Newey has gone, there's been an upward trend. I don't know why it should be any different with Aston Martin. Adrian Newey cannot start until March the 1st, 2025, which is already relatively late. The whole team at Aston Martin certainly needs to get used to each other first. Max knows that he can win titles with us too if we can get through this World Championship now. That is also an absolute must." Now, this might be one of the reasons why Horner should focus on the much bigger problems that both Marko and Verstappen have hinted, which is the performance of the car, rather than the availability of Russell. The chances that they won't see Verstappen drive for them from 2026 onwards are increasing by the day, and the fact that he's gone 8 races without a win goes to show that there is a massive discrepancy in where he used to be to where he is right now as a driver when it comes to being satisfied with the team. As for Wolff, the Austrian has nobody but himself to blame for everything that transpired the way it did, and the made-up interview with Bradley Lord didn't help this situation a single bit, as it only created more drama within the Silver Arrows. With their chemistry not being the strongest one right now, as the strategy calls have been lacking left and right, and the team feeling divided as to whether or not letting Hamilton go was the right thing to do, Wolff also needs to focus on the future and not pay a lot of attention to such subtle digs from his greatest nemesis, Christian Horner. With all this in mind, what do you think about the ongoing war between Red Bull and Mercedes in terms of their drivers? And more importantly, do you think that Russell and Verstappen can switch their seats in a bizarre turn of events? Let us know in the comments down below.